Hi there. Um, Yesterday, if you were watching, and I'm sure all of you are watching without fail, um, you heard me kind of touch myself off on a little rant about fantasy art and trends going on in fantasy art today. And somebody said, "Oh, we found one of Gilead's pet peeves," and it is, in fact, only one of them. um, But I don't have any examples of what I was talking about. I was talking about the extremely um, exaggerated physical features, muscles or boobs or battle axes that would when you look at them, it's like that thing would weigh you know 70 pounds or a couple hundred pounds or something, and it's on a stick. It's like, what kind of a stick could you swing a 200-pound thing on? The stick would just break. I mean, that just bugs me. That crap just bugs me. And so I don't have much of anything in my possession that it looks like that I can share. What I do have is some of these Spectrum books. There's Spectrum 17. I don't have all of them up to 17. I've got maybe 12 of them. Random assortment. 17 is the most recent one that I bought. I think they're in the 20s now, but I stopped buying them somewhere. I'm just going to hold this thing up to the screen, which very inexpertly demonstrates some of the things I'm talking about. Over here, you see these tiny little human figures being menaced by gigantic whatever they are. And this is like art for a D&D campaign or something. um because it's like, Tolkien's Smaug wasn't big enough, wasn't incredible enough, so it's just like, we got to make something that's 5,000 times bigger than that, just to be interesting. um and that's kind of the trend that it's all in, is go bigger, go bigger. Everything's got to be bigger. The axe has got to be bigger. The tits have got to be bigger. The monster's got to be bigger. um which kind of, like, forgets the whole idea that maybe there should be an interesting story going on, somewhere in here, that maybe it would be more interesting if somebody was doing something interesting, and that kind of thing. And then you get down to art that I really like, and you know, here's Frank Frazetta, and I've got a stack of books about Frank Frazetta, and there's no such thing as an image in one of these books that I'm not crazy about. I mean, I think every single one of them is just the most amazing thing in the world. They all tell a story. They're all, full of uh, excitement and adventure, and the composition's really good. The sort of a triangular composition, across here and up and down, is very common in his work. That did a number of things. It's stable, but still full of action, and it also left room up here, of course, for writing the title and things like that. Um, but this work, the color, it has just enough color to grab your eye. I mean, that bright yellow right there. I mean, yeah, it shows that there's fire or sunlight or something coming down through this passageway, but it's also eye-catching. On the shelf, you get this bright yellow spot that kind of grabs your attention, and so extremely good use of color and composition and style, and mostly just missing in modern art. Probably missing in mine too, to be honest. Another one that I really love from the same time period, and I have to confess, possibly, this is all because of when I came in to to the to the room. When I discovered that there was a genre called science fiction and fantasy. Um, I was between 10 and 12 years old, and all of the book covers, just about, were either Frank Frazetta, Jeff Jones, or uh, Roy Krenkel. And Roy Krenkel and Frank Frazetta were friends, and their style is very similar to each other. As a matter of fact, Krenkel was here's something he did, but just with a little set of markers that he bought. Krenkel had a tendency to be a little insecure, and he would get into the middle of a project and then think he wasn't worthy or something, and he'd have Frank come over and help him finish. And Frank was like, you don't need me to help you finish, but I will help you finish. So yeah, here's some Jeff Jones art. Frank has been quoted as having said that Jeff Jones was possibly the greatest living painter of his time, so he wasn't counting himself, and at the same time acknowledging that Jones copied Frank Frazetta quite a bit. Not copied in terms of copying a picture, but copied the kind of imagery. John Shipman, say something, okay? John's here and actually agreeing with this, but the axe is too heavy to even lift Rant. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it just bugs me. I mean, it's like fantasy art, but what are we assuming? Are we assuming that axe has like a anti-gravity flotation device in it so that you don't have to be stronger than Superman just to pick it up? That just annoys the crap out of me. You might notice there's no picture on the wall behind me, and I'm not sure there's going to be. I'm just ranting today. What I'm doing, I'm ranting. So yeah, that stuff. I don't like it, and I like I say, I was buying those books, and they're not cheap. And not only was I buying the books, but the Spectrum annual was a competition to enter every year, and you'd send in a copy of your own work with an entry fee, and that's fine. But it didn't. Yeah, magic explains everything. But if you need an explanation, it doesn't work. All right. Anyway, um, I'd be sending in my fee. I'd be sending in my art. I did it for years and never got picked. And like, okay, poor pitiful me. There's me and 100,000 other guys also that didn't get picked. Where was I going? I know somewhere in there, it just kind of occurred to me that like, if everything in this book was bought by an art director and I hated it, then an art director probably hates my work, right? So, and I don't feel like doing what they're doing, just to be, um, just to get the job. I don't want that job that desperately if that's what I have to do. I want to do the kind of art that I want to do. And that was sort of the moment that I had that realization that, when I was 10 years old, I was looking at Frazetta's work, but I had no idea how illustration worked, how the publishing business worked. I didn't have a clue, and I didn't know anybody that had a clue. My parents didn't know how it worked. Nobody, my school teachers didn't know how that worked. But I imagined Frazetta just standing at his easel making shit up, the way I stand at my easel and just make stuff up. And that he just came up with these fantastic images, and then some guy named Robert E. Howard, carpooled over to the house with some guy named Edgar Rice Burroughs, and they flipped through the paintings and said, "Oh, hey, this looks cool. I could write a story about that." and and then bought the painting and took it home and and put it on a book cover. I couldn't imagine. My 10-year-old mind had really just like stopped there and said, I don't know how that happens, but I that's what I imagined was going on. That sounded like the coolest job in the world, you know. Have all these authors and Molly Hatchet and various people come over to the house and buy paintings off you. That sounds great. And that still sounds great. And that's when I decided that I want to be a fantasy artist. Over time, I realized how illustration works and says, okay, I want to be an illustrator. And I chased being an illustrator unsuccessfully and became a sign painter, but I chased being an illustrator for years. And possibly it was a good thing that I was never particularly successful chasing being an illustrator, because about the time of that book that I just showed you, I was having the realization that I don't think I want to be an illustrator. I think what I want to do is stand at my easel and make things up and see if somebody will come around and buy them. And even if they want to come around and buy them and put them on a book, which isn't how it works, okay? But if somebody wants to do it that way, I'm fine with it. But I don't want to, uh, chase the attention of the art director and beg and plead and get on my knees and say, please, please, please give me a chance. I have no interest in doing that. I guess I'm too old. You know, uh, 22 years as a sign painter was more than enough. Commercial art, more than enough. Having somebody coming out and telling you, do exactly this and exactly this color and make this here and that there. Don't put that over there. Put that over there. So at this point in my life, if I have an inspiration to paint a picture, it's going to be the picture that I feel like painting today, not something from somebody else's story or somebody else's ideas. It's going to be me. And so that's where I am. And it has not so far been a profitable way to be at all, but it is where I am. Uh, and where else? What else was I going to? Oh, you talked about like magic explains it. That's another pet peeve. Um, if you have to explain it, your painting, then it failed. Okay, like if somebody looks at your painting and says, "Oh, that's a tree and a mountain and a house," and you said, "No, it's fungus and bacteria or something," like your painting failed, right? Okay, it didn't work. If I can't look at it and know what it is, it failed. And whenever I start talking about this, which I do a lot, I think about okay, let me get this right. Is Jean-Marie Basquiat? Basquiat was definitely right. Popular in the 80s in the New York City art scene. He started out as a street person doing graffiti and stuff, and he got noticed by Andy Warhol, who actually said as a joke to his crowd, because he was talking about how dumb art collectors were, basically. He said, "I can make this asshole famous. You just watch me." And that's what he did. He went out and said, "Oh, this guy's a genius and everything." And pretty soon, everybody was giving enormous piles of money for Basquiat's art, and he was in the middle of the art scene, and was being shown in big galleries and stuff like that. Uh, yep, John. I remember we've had conversations like this uh, a long time. Gosh, it's 37 years or something. When I met John Shipman, somebody called him an old man, and he said, "I'm 37. I'm not old." And we had just watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail for the first time, and that was a line from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but John didn't know that. And so we were all laughing, and I was just, it's just a thing. Um, okay, Basquiat. I'm going to talk about Basquiat. One time back in the 80s, there was it's a journalist. It wasn't Geraldo Rivera, but it was one of those, you know, uh, star kind of journalists. And he was interviewing Basquiat. And there was this big, imagine this is 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide or ish. Okay, and it was just covered in crap, like spray paint and blobs and all kinds of stuff. And over here, there was a thing that kind of looked like this, and the guy, and there was a bunch of stuff down here like this, and so the reporter said, "What's the deal with the chicken?" And it looked like a chicken. And Basquiat says it's a flea, and he says it looks like a chicken, and Basquiat says, "Trust me, it's a flea." Okay, now right there, he goes, "All right, what's the deal with the flea?" All right, and then Basquiat says, "Well, there's 37 little marks down here, so it represents city council that has 37 members, and they're all a bunch of parasites, or is something like this. They're very deep, calling people a parasite because, uh, because. Um, so um, I always think of that like, trust me, it's a flea. It's like if I can't look at that and know that that's supposed to be a flea, and furthermore, if I can't look at that and know that it represents the politician that you intend for it to represent, then you lose. I'm sorry. It's just like you can say, "Oh, this is my personal symbolism." Well, screw your personal symbolism. Symbolism is supposed to be universal. Symbolism is supposed to mean something to everybody who looks at it. Okay? It's like a heart shape. It's like that represents a heart. It doesn't look like an actual heart at all, but it represents a heart, and it also represents love. It represents your feelings. It represents your emotions. That is universally understood. This little scribble with a bunch of chits under it is universally not understood. Okay, and so this guy's artwork, as far as I'm concerned, completely and absolutely failed. And I always like to compare that to an artist whose name I constantly forget, but he was from the Victorian era. He's British, and there was a cottage, okay, like so, and there's a there's a yard, and there's vegetables growing out in the front yard, and there's a picket fence like this, and a little gate. So it's a very quaint looking uh, peasant scene, done in the late 1800s. And there's a woman standing here, and then there's a chair, and there's a little girl in the chair. And the woman's looking at the little girl like this. And the name of the painting is The Man with the Scythe. And you look at that and go, there's a woman, and the woman has been picking vegetables. Okay, she's got her apron full of vegetables and like a little knife that she's been cutting, the cabbages and stuff. And she's looking at the girl, and the girl is has got a blanket over her. She's got pillows behind her. She's very pale. And you realize, if mom's out here working in the yard and the girl is just sitting in the chair, the girl's got to be sick, like really sick. All right, because otherwise she'd be playing or helping mom with the chores. And then you take another glance and you look at the woman's expression, and you look back at the girl and you realize, no, the girl's dead. And mom has just now had that realization. Like the second that you're looking at it, mom's having the realization at the same exact instant that you're having the realization. You're looking at it and going, oh, and there's that expression on her face, and you can tell that her hands, she's just about to drop the apron, the vegetables and everything. They're just about to fall from her hand. There's this suspended moment of something of great import just about to happen. And then you take a third look at the painting and you realize the pillows, the girl sitting like this, and the pillows kind of shaped like little angel wings. They're little white pillows, and she's got this white blanket on her, and you realize, yeah, she's just become an angel, basically. She's going off to heaven. And over here in the background, there's a gate, and the man with a scythe over his shoulder has just left. So death has just been here, and he's leaving. And so that painting comes to you like a level at a time, but it doesn't require that somebody stand there and explain it to you. When you see it in a gallery or in a museum, if you take the time, it comes to you on its own. You could just walk past it and go, cutesy little peasant cottage in the countryside, and la la la. It's all quaint and sentimental and everything, and you could dismiss it without understanding any of it. And then there's things that you have to know the context, such as at the time that this was painted, it wasn't cool to paint peasants. It wasn't cool to paint the pains and concerns of common people. It was cool to paint royalty and do portraits and to do great events like biblical stories and historical stories and mythology and stuff like that. And there were a few guys that were coming out and painting like scenes of everyday life. Yeah, the Grim Reaper is this guy just looks like a dude, just looks like a farmer or something with a scythe over his shoulder. But you get the symbolism, is that, and I think you get it without even reading the title. The title kind of compels you to go back and have another look and go, what, and just in case you were inclined to miss it. um, but yeah, he it was really a cool trick. That painting, it was what that you took another look, and you took another look and took another look, and I really enjoyed that process. Okay, as compared to the Basquiat thing that I was talking about earlier, where if Basquiat himself is not standing there explaining not only what this object is supposed to represent physically, but also what that's supposed to symbolize artistically, then it doesn't mean anything to you. It's just a mess. And it really was just a mess. um, and a lot of this art is exquisitely done. I mean, just the skill level is astonishing. I'm gonna put something else in front of the. Just gonna pick something at random here. Something. Okay. Um, uh, the detail and the skill is just astounding. It's just, I can't say, oh, you hack. The guy, these people, they're so good. They're so good. And I'll look at that and I'll be super impressed and I'll close the book and I don't remember what I just looked at, and I never will. Okay. And I never have any desire to own that picture, to hang it on the wall. I don't want a print of it. I don't want to look at that. It just, nothing compels me to look at that. Rosetta paintings I've had hanging on my wall um, practically all my life. Um, Another experience that I had was in a diner one time having lunch, and sitting in a booth, and there were some kids in a booth behind me. And this was probably more than 20 years ago, but still, um, there's these kids were sitting in the booth behind me, and they were talking all excitedly about something. It was just like, "Oh, dude, no, it's amazing! Oh my God, you should have seen it! I wish you could have seen it. It was just so cool." And I'm thinking, okay, was this a football game or some really cool movie that they just watched or something? And as they were talking and they were describing, this thing, and they were like, there's this guy, and he's just so badass. He's so scary looking, and he's up on this horse, and it's just this big black horse, and it's on the top of this hill. And I'm looking for it right now. I've got it here, if I can find it. Um, and they were talking about the Deathdealer by Frank Frazetta, which was painted years before any of these guys were born. Um, it was on the cover of a Molly Hatchet album, which none of those guys had ever heard of. I have it; it's in this book, and I can't just flip randomly to it. But they were talking about this like, like it was a game they just saw, the Super Bowl, final touchdown, in the last minute or something. They were super excited, and I've heard other people get super excited about that same painting and some of other Frazetta paintings, that they, if they had never seen Frazetta before and they're introduced, it really kind of grabs you and makes you go, "Oh my God, that's just the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life." And they became fans forever. Here's the Deathdealer. If you're old like me, you used to see cheap imitations of that airbrushed on the side of some 70s van back in the day, or you've seen T-shirts and you've seen record albums and whatnot. Anyways, I thought to myself, I would love to be the artist that a bunch of kids are talking about, 20, 30 years later, and going, "Oh, this is the coolest thing. Oh my God." Because I've never heard a group of teenagers uh, talking excitedly about a painting before. I mean, that's a singular experience with me. I've never seen that happen before. And then I've got, here's, what the hell's that? I don't know. I remember another painting. We were in the Chrysler Museum, I think, over there in the Portsmouth area, and there was a painting called "Waiting for William," and there was a girl. She's sitting on something. She's on the beach. The beach goes off like that. She's got her hat, and she's got something. I think an umbrella in her hand, folded up, and she's looking out to sea. Okay, and she has written William in the sand, and somewhere out there, I think there was a ship that might or might not be William, and so this lady is, she's waiting for William, and there's so much story in that, and again, you don't need to read the title, and you don't need to have anything explained to you. You might or might not put the same interpretation on it that the artist did. William could be her brother. I'm assuming it's her boyfriend. But she's waiting. William's gone away. He's on a ship. One of these days he's going to come back. Again, it was a Victorian era painting, and ship, traveling by ship was pretty uncertain back then. You couldn't say, "Oh, he's going to be here Friday afternoon at 6 o'clock." It was just sometime this spring we expect to come sailing in, and so she was waiting for William, and she had that look on her face that you have no idea. Is William coming? Is that him? Is that she going to be disappointed again? Does she come down here every day and wait like that? But you can tell yourself these kind of stories, these kind of narratives, and I love that. To me, that's the best kind of art. And the worst kind is something that you look at and you go, "Man, that's fantastic. Oh my God, they're so detailed. They're so incredible. That's so badass." What is it? I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's good. It's badass. And so that kind of stuff, it really disappoints me to see that we've entered this era where that's virtually all there is. Fantasy art seems to mean badass. whatever whatever that's about. And there's not a whole lot more to it, or bad acts, if that's as the case may be. Um, and yeah, I told you I didn't have much to draw today, and I just nattered on and nattered on. And I hope I wasn't too boring, but I have those things, uh, my pet peeves. Why the hell I thought anybody wanted to hear my pet peeves, I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed that. It's been half an hour, and as I say, I'm officially boring as hell after half an hour. Besides, I've got no more pet peeves to share you. You've heard all of them. Between yesterday and today, you've heard all of my pet peeves. Sort of. Jane Austen novel, Mansfield Park. Still, um, maybe when did she write? I don't remember. Um, yeah, I do like virtually visiting. That reminds me of a thing. Um, Stock in the company Zoom just plummeted because Facebook announced that they've got their version coming out sometime. Don't disable your Zoom account yet because that hasn't happened yet. Um, I haven't even used Zoom. Stellar uses it all the time at work. Yeah, early 1800s. So that painting could easily reference a Jane Austen book. The artist's impression of the book. Who knows? Um, was okay. So Facebook is doing some kind of a Zoom thing, and the reason that's significant is because we could do something like this, where unlike the Facebook Messenger video chat call thing, where I've got to actually dial your number and get you in. Um, and John says zucchini. That yeah, trigger word. Oh my god, that'll trigger another rant. Uh, anyway, I gotta stay on top. I gotta focus. Zoom. So this Facebook could be coming out with a Zoom like thing, and depending on how long we're all on quarantine, it would be a thing where without all of us going out and downloading some new software and trying to figure it out and everything, there could be just this button you can press on your Facebook and say, "Go join this Zoom thing," and then everybody could be here and we could all talk at once and yell at each other, and it could be more of an actual gathering than uh, me looking at my own reflection on my screen and noticing that there's the thing says someone so and so said that they like my video or whatever, but I don't actually know if they're still here. Because sometimes people just tune in and go, "Oh, he's doing a video. That's great." I don't have time for that, and which I understand, but it's just like I don't actually know at any given moment if I'm talking to myself or whatever. So and something like that, something like Zoom, or we could do Zoom. If that doesn't happen soon enough, we could all try doing Zoom to do a virtual get together. A virtual sci-fi convention or a virtual uh, class reunion or something like that. I don't know how many people you can get into one Zoom room. I think it's fairly large. I think you get like 100 folks or something. So that's a possibility. At some point in the future, we could turn this into something. I mentioned the I forget the word, sketch off that we've done at the conventions. Um, I really liked it. At the conventions, you get up on stage and you have blank paper, and the audience would shout out a suggestion. You had 15 minutes to do a drawing based on some crazy thing that they thought of, and it's a hoot. It's a lot of fun, and what I've been doing has been a little bit like that, except I'm throwing my own suggestions at me. But we could do something like that, and we could get just about an unlimited number of artists to participate, so that we could all uh, come up with our own interpretation. Um, are these suggested uh, bitch off, rant off? Yeah, yeah. I can, if you program it for me, I'll head the company. No problem. Um, just because something isn't poison doesn't make it food. Yeah, that's yeah. Kale, zucchini, beets, all that stuff. Right. You know, it's technically it's not poison. Neither is grass, but it's not food either. It's it's not meant for human consumption. It's certainly not meant to be half of my dish when I order Chinese foods. Like, why is 50% of this plate a pile of zucchini? That's why I like Yao's, because you tell them to not give you zucchini, and they take the zucchini out and they go, "Oh, that's not very much," and they give you more meat. and uh, so I've learned to really customize my order with them. You know, some places you go and you say, "Hold this and hold that," and there's like, "Okay, here's your ounce of that you have left when we take all the stuff out of it." Uh, but they just pile it on because they're cool. All right. So that's really all I've got. That's really more than what I've got. That was extra filler. That was like verbal zucchini. And I'm going to sign out now. Thank you all for coming. I really enjoy uh, getting to hang out with you for a couple of minutes. Have a good day.